One. Welcome, guys, to the Gridiron Gurus. My name is Keith. This is Jesse. It's presented by Fanmosphere. And we've got just a couple college football notes and news from around the league today. Going to spotlight a particular individual. And then Jesse and I are going to do our college football bold playoffs, safe and bold predictions for the college football playoffs coming up. And then our 5 and 5 at the end of the show, which we're going to do the top 5 national championship games since 2000, with the last 20 years. I'm really kind of.
How hard was that for you to do?
A lot easier than I thought.
Really?
Just to be honest,
I had a time.
because I just went on. It was Wikipedia or something and looked up, the last, games.
Yeah.
And the ones that really popped out to me that I can remember watching, sitting down and actually really enjoying it, being a close game or whatever, for whatever reason, and it just, boom, 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 I was done.
I had a bunch come to mind.
Well, see, I actually looked it up, and because I didn't want to miss one.
Yeah.
And I'm glad I did, because I would have missed one.
Yeah.
There was one that it was actually, I think it was my number 4 that I looked up, and I was like, man, I'm so glad I went back and watched that, just because, like I said, I would have missed it. So I went back through all the years, and the ones I can just remember sitting down watching and really enjoy watching them.
Right.
But anyways, so we're going to get into our college football news, and I'm going to start this out because when we were discussing, what we're going to talk about today, this one we both had, so I'm going to go ahead and steal your thunder on it. LSU tight end Eric Gilbert, who was playing tight end at LSU, and had entered the transfer portal, thought he was going back to LSU, and then reopened his recruitment. It was something odd that he was actually going to go back and then decided not to. It came down to, I think, Georgia and Tennessee. I think Alabama was in the running for him. Ended up going to Georgia. And I hate that because I really wanted him at Tennessee. But it
was a long shot, though. I mean, it was a long shot.
It might have been a long shot. I think we had a better chance than what some people believe, because if I'm not mistaken, Gilbert was a high school teammate of Harrison Bailey.
I think so. Yeah, I think that.
And I think that was the connection that the Tennessee thought that they could get him, and I thought they had a legitimate shot. But the state of the program compared to Georgia or Alabama, I think, is what eventually killed Tennessee's dream.
Yeah, well, I think with with Georgia, I mean, they already had some transfers coming in onto a team that's already pretty good.
Right.
They have a quarterback situation that's a lot more secure than what Tennessee has right
Tennessee's is probably the only quarterback competition in the country that nobody knows. I mean, they're
the one that nobody has an idea of.
But that's what I'm saying is that there's at least 3 guys that you can name that have a legitimate chance to start, and everybody has a good, like, those 3 guys all have a good case.
Yeah.
Georgia is a little different story.
Yeah, I mean, JT Daniels actually is giving them some veteran leadership,
right,
and is actually going to provide them. In which another guy that's a guy we had a shot at, or we thought we had a shot at, right, when he was transferring from. Where did he come from? Was it USC, maybe? I think it was USC.
I thought it was a Big Ten school, but I could be wrong.
I was thinking it was USC. I don't know. I'd have to look that up.
I'll look that up as we're talking, because I don't want to misquote it. But I swear it was a Big Ten school, but I could be wrong.
But Eric Gilbert, to me, in my opinion, is the next Kyle Pitts. I think he's the next Kyle Pitts.
JT Daniels was at USC, Southern Cal.
Okay.
Yeah, you're right.
But I think he's the next Kyle Pitts, and that's scary to me because Georgia is, I don't feel like, far away from getting over the hump.
No, I don't think so either.
And
they're close.
Yeah. So, anyways, it sucks. I was really hoping that he would go either. If he went in the SEC, I was hoping it'd be another West team, or he would just leave the SEC entirely.
Yeah.
I hate to see him.
I don't think he was going too far from home.
What is he? He's going to be a sophomore?
He's going to be a sophomore. He was just a freshman last year.
Which, I mean, he's going pro. He's going pro after his junior year, I'm sure.
Absolutely.
I don't see him staying. So, but still, 2 years of playing that guy, that's not going to be fun.
No. He's definitely a talented kid, definitely a playmaker. He caught 35 passes as a freshman for almost 370 yards and 2 touchdowns.
Right.
He's going to step into a Georgia offense and I can't remember now how many offensive players they have returning on the offensive line, but I feel like they're going to be solid. Like I said, I can't remember. I don't want to misquote anything.
Yeah, I don't remember honestly off the top of my head.
But this definitely changes things for Georgia, and we just did our safe and bowl predictions for each conference last week, and I think mine was Florida, and I kind of want to, or my bowl prediction, I might want to change it to Georgia now, just because of him on Eric Gilbert transferring to Georgia.
Yeah, I was thinking that when I saw that they got him, I thought, man, because in Georgia actually, he's not the only transfer that they've had that's been a big name. They brought in a Clemson corner.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I can't think of his name right off the top of my head, but he was a starter for Clemson for 2 or 3 seasons.
Right.
And so, I mean, they're going to be. I think I actually said last week, put my foot in my mouth. Now that I think about it, I said that A&M had a better chance at winning the SEC than Georgia, and that was stupid.
Well, no, I don't think so, because even though Texas A&M is not bringing back nowhere near as much of the talent that Georgia is, I still think A&M is going to play with a chip on their shoulder. Some of the younger kids are going to step up and play well. So I don't think that was a bad, and I wouldn't take it back if I was you.
Well,
mine, was Florida, and we're going to get into Dan Mullen in a minute. But Georgia has a better chance than Florida. A&M, I think A&M and Georgia will be on the same level.
Well, the thing that hurts Florida is the fact that they're, in order to win the SEC, all roads lead through Alabama.
Right.
Most likely twice, because they play them in the regular season.
Right.
And then, barring any unforeseen plans, Alabama is in the SEC title game, and so they have to play them again if they make it. So, and you're not going to be beating Nick Saban twice in the same year.
Probably not. But if you do beat them in the regular season and then you lose in the title game, it's a better situation than if you're A&M.
Right.
Because you can lose to Alabama and still meet them again. If you're A&M, you lose, then you've kind of blown your only chance.
Well,
because they're in the West together.
Possibly, which, I mean, it could be one of those things where you have to be in Alabama in order for this to happen. But if you think back a couple years ago, Alabama loses to Auburn and doesn't make the title game.
Right.
And just the chips fall the right way, and
right.
they end up back in the title game, and they end up winning it. They beat Georgia.
Right.
So,
which we're going to talk about that game later on too, right?
Yeah, I am. Yeah, it did make the list. I'll go ahead and throw that out there.
But anyways,
so moving on to the next piece of news. Wasn't a whole lot in news this week.
It's kind of a dead period as far as
Well, and actually, I just found a I don't really know if you call it a breaking news story, but something that just dropped to go along with my next piece is, LSU fired their offensive line coach.
And I had no idea that happened until you mentioned it literally about 20 minutes ago.
Fired him yesterday, James Craig, and fired him on Wednesday, and which they're less than 100 days away from the first game. That's huge. Well, the new story that just got released, this is from an ESPN writer, Alex Scarborough. He has dropped a story that LSU is expected to hire Arkansas offensive line coach Brad Davis to replace their former offensive line coach.
Okay.
So that's a pretty big hire there. Davis spent the past 4 seasons coaching in the SEC at Arkansas, Missouri, and Florida.
Okay.
So he's coached some pretty talented offensive lines.
Yeah.
And to go offensive line, I may be biased, but when I say this, but offensive line is the most important position on a coaching staff.
I believe so.
I think it goes offensive line and then, or 1 or 2. I think either offensive line is 1 and strength coach is 2, or vice versa. I think that the strength coach is right there, and I think the offensive line, you can't have any type of offensive production, passing or rushing, without an offensive line first. And I think it's something that you can really easily mess up. We saw that firsthand.
Oh yeah.
With Will Friend at UT
Yeah.
It's easy to mess up.
It's easy to mess up.
Really easy to mess up.
I would actually argue that the strength coach is a little more important. And I get what you're saying.
Yeah,
the offensive line is number 2.
I mean, 1 or 2. Either way, I'll give it to you.
Because your strength coach, it needs to be number 1 for me, because that's where, as far as time spent in your off season and even into your season during it,
right?
That guy has those guys, constantly, meal plan, their diet, what they're doing in the weight room. I mean, It's a lot that goes into it, and a lot of it, your team success, especially offensive line, where you're having to literally manhandle somebody the entire game, and defensive line as well. It all falls back on him.
Yeah,
so
I agree.
That's where I would.
As far as positions coaches go,
I would agree.
I think the offensive line is the most important, and it's
And I would put defensive line up there too, close to. I'd put number 3. I'd probably go offensive line, quarterback, receivers coach.
See, I was going to say O-line, secondary, defensive line. I think a secondary is something that you can easily screw up too.
You can.
An important position.
But as far as importance goes to a team, offensive and defensive line, because if you have a bad defensive line,
that's true.
You're not getting any pressure on the quarterback. You're getting drove off the ball. I mean, there's a lot of things that go into a defensive line as far as that goes.
But and we're in a time right now where we're in June, okay?
Right.
And a lot of the coaching vacancies have already been filled.
Right.
So
it's just odd.
Now, if they end up hiring Brad Davis, great.
Right.
But if they can't make the hire, I'm sure Pittman's going to try every way in the world to keep him.
Right.
If they can't make the hire, then they're kind of scrambling, trying to find the right guy.
Right. You're really putting yourself in a bad situation, and that's what makes me wonder, because there's not been a whole lot of information come out about why the guy he lost his job.
Yeah. Why so
suddenly? There's something there that's going on that we don't know, and it has to be something big, like you said, to the timing.
Yeah.
When you're less than 100 days out from your first game, and all of a sudden you fire your offensive line coach, you better have a good reason to do that.
Yeah.
In my mind, you better have a very, very good reason to do that, and they probably do. We just don't know what it is yet.
So the next piece of information we got is, and I don't even know if it's really that big of a deal, but I added it because there's not a whole lot of news. Like I said, Dan Mullen got a 3-year contract extension, which carries him through the 2026 season.
Right.
We saw that coming.
I mean,
there's no news there. We saw that coming.
The only thing that gets me about these contract extensions for coaches, and I think Dan Mullen's earned it, and I think he's gonna be there with Florida as long as they'll have him. But it's the same thing that Pruitt got and Butch Jones got at Tennessee. That you'll give a guy the 3-year extension whenever he's still got 3 years left on his deal, which is the case with Mullen. His contract was through 2023. He got a 3-year extension through 26. And what if the wheels fall off of this thing, with a year left in his contract?
Yeah.
Well, before the extension, or even into 2024, the wheels fall off of it. Then you're stuck with a buyout.
I will say to his credit, which going back, I feel like we always go back to Tennessee every time we mention we get some kind of news or whatever. But Dan Mullen is one that I wanted at UT.
He wanted to be at UT.
He did. I don't know what happened there. I'd love to pick his brain. He can't talk about it, so what's the point?
No.
But anyway,
I do know that I had read some stuff on it, and it goes back to Curry and the Haslam's wanting their guy. That's where that the Schiano mess. And the one that I had listened to talk about it was Clay Travis. I don't know if you know who that is.
Yeah, outkick the coverage. Is that Clay
I
Travis?
think that is. Yeah, he had a, or he maybe still does have that podcast going. But he talked about that on his podcast, was that Dan Mullen had got a hold of his agent and said, "Hey, look, I know this job had just came open. Show interest. I want to go, and that's where I want to go." Of course, this was before Florida fired. Was it McElwain? Is that what his name?
Was that who? Yeah, that was before Mullen, I believe.
I think that was the coach before Jim McElwain. That anyways, we had fired Jones, and he had expressed interest. Agent called Curry. Curry said, "Okay, we're getting the committee together. We'll let you know." And never called him back. Well, the Florida job came open. Mullen again said, "Call Tennessee. I want to make sure that all my doors are open. I want to go to Tennessee. I don't know if the Florida job's going to work out." Again, agent reached out. We're going to set up an interview, and never got a call.
Wow, that's unbelievable.
And that's the the quick gist of it. There's a lot more that goes into.
Schiano Like, we were hiring Greg Schiano, but didn't even give.
And this was all after the fact that the agent was calling Curry.
Anyway, so
like I said, that was the short version of the story.
To his credit about getting the extension, he is 29-9 at Florida with a 2-1 bowl record. All 3 of his bowl games so far have been in the New Year's Six.
Oh yeah,
every one of them have been a New Year's Six bowl,
right?
Which is the equivalency of the BCS.
Right.
That was the thing.
Part of that too goes into where he's at Florida, Miami, and Florida State not being very good.
True. That's true.
Definitely helps the fact that he can get a lot more recruits than. But now that might change with Norville and the other coach. I can't think of the other coach's name. But anyways,
what is his name? It's not Cristobal because he's at Oregon. Anyway.
Yeah. Anyways, I think that's going to change a little bit for him, but he's already established. So, as a Tennessee fan, I hate that. I hope the wheels do fall off at Florida, but for Mullen and what he's done, it's impressive. It really is. It's really impressive. So, anyways, I'm going to move on. That's all we have for news. Like Jesse said, it's been a very dull time.
That's kind of cool. We had the breaking news.
That was, yeah. It just kind of came up.
Yeah.
Going to do our spotlight. Jesse did one a couple weeks ago, and we were going to do one last week, but we had.
I absolutely killed it.
I think mine's better. Better.
Okay.
I think mine's better. And I told you before the show started, I'm going to blow your mind.
All right.
With my spotlight for somebody to watch this year. We've talked about him on this show. Actually, I think we've talked about him 2 or 3 times.
Okay.
As references to some of the other subjects that we've talked about. But it's Tate Martell.
Oh man, I wasn't guessing that.
Tate Martell is my spotlight for somebody to watch this year. If you don't know who Tate Martell is, he has a very, very interesting story.
You know what's funny about that though?
Go ahead.
Before you get into this, when I was doing my what ifs, I thought about doing a team or a player.
Right.
And you know what player came to mind when I thought about doing the what ifs?
Tate Martell.
Just because of how much hype he had going in. So it's hilarious that you did that. But
I did that. Well, for what ifs, I did a team.
I did too. I did a team.
But Tate Martell, he was a quarterback coming out of Las Vegas, Nevada in 2017. This was some of his accolades in high school. He was a 2014 All-USA Today second team. And in 14, he would have been a freshman, right? Or a sophomore. Freshman.
I think, yeah.
14 freshman, 15, 16, yeah. 14 would have been a freshman. 2016, he was an All-USA Today Offensive Player of the Year. That would have been as a junior. And then as a senior, went to the USA Army All-American game as a starting quarterback.
Gosh.
I mean...
And then,
and there are other accolades, but those are some of the national...
Has he actually had starting reps in D1 football?
Like in game?
Has he started a game?
No. He's been in a game.
Yeah.
But he's not.
I'm saying he started.
He started the
starter,
game. Yes. No, he's never been a starter.
That's unbelievable.
So this guy was a 5-star recruit coming out of Las Vegas, Nevada. Now, what does hurt him? He's only 5'11".
Yeah, but
and he's 211 pounds.
Kyler Murray. Look at
Kyler Murray's very mobile. Russell Wilson's mobile.
Tate Martell was supposed to have been mobile,
mobile-ish. He was probably like the Drew Brees. That's what I would compare him to. Drew Brees is a fair comparison for Tate Martell.
Okay.
In my eyes. Anyway, so Tate Martell coming out of high school, commits to Ohio State in 2017. Spends 2 years at Ohio State, and they bring in Justin Fields, and they had Dwayne.
No, I don't know.
Who was it before Fields?
Before Fields was Haskins.
It was Dwayne Haskins.
Yeah, Haskins. Yeah.
So, anyways, he never got a chance to start there. Felt like he was kind of done wrong. So he transfers to Miami in 2019, 2 years in, and loses the job to, was it King?
I think he actually first lost to N'Kosi Perry. Before King.
Yeah. So he never won the job, sat for another year, and then of course COVID and stuff, and now he's transferring to UNLV.
He is at UNLV.
Yes, okay. And he got he is immediately eligible. So he will be, as far as I know, is UNLV starting quarterback going into the 2021 season.
We don't.
And with the COVID year and his red shirts and stuff, he will actually be a junior.
What?
Yep. He got a COVID year to sit out this year, and then was granted another year because he chose to sit out. And then everybody.
He has 2 more years of athletic eligibility.
Yes.
Man, the NCAA is messed up. How in the world?
Because if you use a red shirt, that red shirt, his first year at Ohio State doesn't count.
So he's still a freshman.
So he's still a freshman in 18, transfers, and then has set out this year because of COVID.
Wow.
And then was granted a year of eligibility.
Wow, that's unbelievable.
And then the transfer rule that just came out, he's immediately eligible to play.
That is unbelievable. Wow. Well, good luck to you, Tate Martell.
So Tate Martell has a very an interesting backstory, and I hope he does well. It's going to be an interesting thing to see if he does, but I just think the whole transfer thing, we've talked about it before, is to prevent what Tate Martell has done.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
is just bounce around. He's going to he'll wound up playing for 3 Division I teams. Well, I say playing. He's been on the team.
He's been on 3 divisions.
He's been on the team.
He's probably played at some point, touched the field at some point.
He has.
But he's not actually been.
No.
He's not been what we thought he was supposed to be.
No. He was, like I said, a 5-star recruit coming out of high school and never won a starting job.
I'm curious what he is, and I haven't looked at it. Maybe you have it in your notes. I don't know. What his star rating is now.
4.
4? He's still a 4-star?
That's what it was on 247.
Golly, that must be, and that has to be banking off of just what
banking off
of
high school.
To do. Yeah,
banking off potential. Absolutely,
that's crazy.
That's just banking off potential. But I think that the potential is there, and he's going back home to play at UNLV
Hopefully.
because he is from Las Vegas.
Yeah,
and that was originally, I think he committed as a sophomore. Because you can commit as early as you want to.
He committed to UNLV first?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah, he had verbally committed as a sophomore.
Okay.
And then going into his senior year, he opened it back up because then he realized there's bigger fish in the sea that he can go play for, and he might be at this point regretting that decision.
Probably. He's probably feeling like, okay, let's finish this thing in the way it was supposed to have been.
Right.
I hope he does well.
I hope he does well.
I'd like to actually see what he can really do.
Right.
Because I remember is it called QB1?
Yes.
That was called the story. I remember that documentary coming out, and he looked good. He looked really good.
Mm-hmm.
Played at Bishop Gorman, a very big
Bishop Gorman, yes,
there in Nevada. So I think he was the quarterback. I don't know if he was actually the quarterback for Snoop's son, but I think he was on the team with Snoop Dogg's son, who went on to be a receiver at UCLA.
Yes.
Maybe?
Yes.
And
UCLA.
So hopefully he does well. I hope. I don't know. I'm not going to hold my breath on that, but it would be cool to see. But we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I think you're right. Anyhow, so moving on from the spotlight, we're going to move into the segment I've really looked forward to today. Is our college football playoff safe and bold predictions. Of course, we did our last week. We did our safe and bold predictions for each conference.
Yeah.
And I'm actually going to throw conference champion. I'm gonna throw a screwball in you on the bold right at the end. Number 4 for the bold.
Okay, you're probably gonna have. Okay, well, I almost did that and I went away from it. I'm curious if you picked the team that I almost picked. But anyways, the safe. This is honestly kind of boring. The safe.
The safe is going to be. I'm pretty sure at least 1 through 3 will be the same.
I would dare say 1 through 4 is the same.
I'm assuming
for my safe, I picked what I feel like the media is going to pick.
Right.
Alabama.
I think it's consensus nationwide.
Yeah, Alabama, Clemson, Ohio State, Oklahoma.
Yep.
And
my
heart wanted to say number 4, Iowa State, because I feel like when we do our predictions, unless something crazy happens between now and August, whenever we do our preseason predictions,
right,
I'm most likely picking Iowa State to be in the college football playoff. I have that much faith in Matt Campbell and Iowa State.
we're gonna get that into. I'll get into that in our bold segment, but just for the safe of safe, I mean Oklahoma is the safe bet coming out of the Big 10 or Big 12.
I agree. Go ahead and tell me your safe though, or did you have the exact same?
Alabama, Ohio State, Clemson, Oklahoma.
Oh, okay, so the exact same.
The exact same, yeah. No, I just flip flop 2 and 3. Just flip flop 2 and 3.
I didn't put them in order. I just threw four names.
Well,
That's funny though that they kind of do look like they're in order. If you think about it,
right?
1, 2, yeah, that kind of looks like it. But I just threw out 4 names.
Right.
So for bold, you want to go first for bold, or do you want me to go?
It don't matter. You can go bold. You can go. Just let's do one by one. Let's go bold.
Again, I didn't put them in order. I'll just go one.
That's fine. We'll do one at a time.
The first one I threw out there for bold was Georgia.
See, I had A&M. And that was before I seen the Eric Gilbert. I literally just put Georgia in parentheses.
That was the reason I put Georgia was because of the Eric Gilbert. And,
I have A&M, but then I parentheses just now put Georgia because I looked down. I was like, I want to change that because, for obvious reasons. They're adding him, and they did add the corner from Clemson. So
right,
I think Georgia has a chance to come out of the SEC.
Well, and just like the more I thought about it, Georgia has more of a going back to the quarterback situation. They have a more solidified quarterback situation than A&M. A&M's going to have a quarterback battle,
Right.
So I just feel like with all those things in play,
right,
Georgia is probably
the safe bet.
Even though it's a bold pick, it's still a safer bold pick.
And it's the same thing as we talked about last week with our safe and bold predictions. I mean, it's bold, but it's not. I'm not saying that
out of the realm of possibility.
Right. I'm not saying Kentucky's going to go undefeated and run the table and come out of the SEC and represent us.
Of course, they did that one year. Who would have thunk it? That they would.
Okay, I'll change it. Vandy. Vandy's not going to run the tape. It's not stupid. Fine. It's not. I
don't know. Is Sarah fullback? I shouldn't have said that. Anyway, that was. Oh man. Anyway, moving on.
But yeah, I can see Georgia. I can also see A&M, and I can actually see Georgia losing to Alabama in the regular season, and then coming back and getting them in the.
They don't actually Georgia.
Yeah,
they don't actually play Alabama in the regular season.
They
do have to play Auburn though. No, they got.
I think Georgia wins that game.
I don't think. I could be wrong, but I think that they have because they have Auburn every year. I think it's Auburn. Of course, they got Florida. I don't think they play Alabama. I'll look it up and see, but I think the only one Alabama's got is Florida.
Okay.
Well, actually, yeah, it's Florida and us. They play 2 East teams, and we're every year. So yeah,
you're right. So Georgia, I could see them being undefeated going into the Alabama game and the SEC title game and winning it.
Yeah.
And then representing the SEC in the college playoffs. Iowa State is my bold. I'll go
second bold.
It's my second bold.
I had them on my list. I did put them on there. Again, I'm probably going to pick them to be in it, but I put them on as a bold because I think it's probably a bold pick for a lot of people.
Right. It is. But for good reason. I mean, Ooh, a little bit of thunder. Okay. So here's my 2 that I'm going to throw out, and you're probably going to.
Thunder.
Yeah, a lot of thunder. Notre Dame.
Okay.
I see Notre Dame having an outside shot going in, kind of like they did last year.
Yeah.
Because they're out of the ACC now.
Right.
They're not having to play that. The only really tough game I see them having is the USC game, the rivalry game that's coming back.
They host Cincinnati, which could be.
I've got Cincy as one of my other teams on the outside looking in to get into the playoffs.
Me too. I think that's a good pick though. They could make it. I hope they don't because I'm sick of seeing them go in there and get obliterated. But they could make it. My third pick.
That's my argument for Notre Dame. That's my argument for an 18 playoff because it gives even if they're outside looking in.
You know what I think we should do? This is what I think would work. I think you do a automatic qualifier for the 5 Power 5 teams.
I agree.
You get 5 Power 5 conference champions automatically go.
Right.
And then you have 3 at large.
3 at large bids.
That, I think, solves it.
I think so, too. And not only that, but it also, I think, would force Notre Dame to join the conference.
I think so, too.
I think they go back to the ACC. I think it forces their hand.
And to make it even, I don't know, maybe that's still being at large, but, you could do an automatic qualifier for a group of 5. If you, or you could, I I'm just thinking like you got that bowl game. I think it was.
You're filling your spots up quick if you do that.
Yeah, you are. But again, it forces Notre Dame's hand. Is where I'm going with that.
Right, I understand that.
Because they're the only team, besides BYU, but they have more of a chance than BYU. But they're the only team that is an independent that actually has an opportunity to make a playoff.
BYU's independent?
I think so. Unless they were independent. Unless they joined.
I think they joined
Mountain West.
The Mountain West, yeah.
Did they? Okay.
I could be wrong, but I think they joined the Mountain West. I think Army, Navy, they're independent too as well, right?
The Navy's now with the American Conference.
Okay.
They were in there with Cincinnati now.
Okay.
But yeah, I like Notre Dame though. I think it's a good pick. I hope it don't happen. Gosh, I hope they don't make it. But anyway, my third bold pick was North Carolina.
I can see that. I can see them because they're going to make a push for Clemson this year.
I think so too. I think that they're in the SEC title game.
I think so too.
And if they beat Clemson, then they're in.
Right.
They should be.
Right.
So
I can see them running the table and then getting Clemson and then being like the number 2 seed in the college football playoffs.
Yeah,
I can see that.
You do my number 4 first. You want to save the number? Your
I'll save. Yeah.
Okay, my number 4. I went away from the Big 12, or not Big 12, but Big 10, and I chose Oregon. Oregon, and the reason being is because
interesting.
They play in Columbus against Ohio State.
Right.
They go to Seattle to play Washington.
Okay.
So I think that their schedule is tough enough. I think that if they were to run the table,
mm-hmm.
I think they went 4-2 in that crazy COVID season last year. If they were to run the table though, or even if they have a 1 loss, like maybe they go to Columbus and win, but they lose to Washington to get the rematch in the Pac-12 title.
Mm-hmm.
If they win their conference and they have a win over Ohio State in Columbus, then I think they're in.
I can see that.
I think they have to be at least a 1 loss or better. And win the conference. But I think they could be in.
I think so too. I think that's a good point. My last one is Indiana.
Indiana, okay.
I could see Indiana with an outside chance of getting into the playoffs.
Well, I mean, I think if they win the Big Ten,
absolutely.
I think it's the same situation as Oregon.
Right.
I think they're going to have to be a 1 loss or better. I don't think a 2-loss Indiana, even with the conference championship, is getting in.
Well, because you got to think, because you're going to have Alabama, who's probably undefeated. You're going to have a Clemson or not Notre Dame, Clemson or North Carolina, who's probably going to get in.
Well, as bad as I hate to say it, I think a 1 or 2-loss Alabama team without a conference title gets in over a 1 or a 2-loss Indiana team with a conference title.
It's be hard for any 2-loss team to get in.
Is it though? I mean, Alabama seems to have it's just I don't know. It's the fact that it's Alabama. I think that the committee just seems to lean towards them just because of
name,
who they are. Yeah,
I agree.
So I just think that
it would have to, the chips would have to fall right, even for an Alabama at 2 losses to get in. That would be a lot of upsets, and it's possible. But I could see an Indiana. But you're right, Indiana, Oregon, some of these other teams, even like a Notre Dame, who the committee seems to love, or Oklahoma. If any of these teams have a 2-loss, it's going to be hard for them to get in. Mm-hmm. Really hard, because like I said, you're going to have Alabama, who more than likely is going to have either no losses or 1. Clemson the same way. There's going to be somebody coming out of the Big 12. Yeah, the Big 12. Oklahoma, Ohio, or Iowa State that's going to get in. So these other teams are looking at Ohio State's going to be in that mix as well. So if you have 2 losses in these Power 5 conferences, it's going to be really hard to push for that 4th seed.
Yeah.
I mean, we've seen that with A&M last year.
Yeah.
So. Anyways, that's my
argument
on that.
Okay. With that though, so if you flip flop A&M and Alabama, say A&M goes undefeated, wins the SEC, Alabama's sitting there with those 2 losses. You still think Notre Dame makes it over Alabama, or do you think Alabama? Because I feel like Alabama gets the nod.
Notre Dame. It's sitting at 1 loss. Is that your argument?
Who was A&M's 2 losses last season? I know it was Alabama.
And then lost to. Oh man,
it was SEC, wasn't it?
It was. Well, it had to have been.
Oh yeah, duh. Was it Florida?
Possibly. I'm gonna look that up because that's
I think it might have been Florida. I don't know. I think though, but I'm just saying. Let's say you flip that. Let's say Alabama, who I think also might have played Florida last year. I don't know though, to be honest. But let's say Alabama lost to a Florida and an A&M, and A&M ran the table, are undefeated. I think Alabama gets in over Notre Dame, even though they lost, because the argument would be
they had one loss.
Who?
A&M.
Oh, well then, okay, that makes it even. Okay, so again, Alabama sitting there with the one loss to A&M, who won the SEC, and then you got Notre Dame sitting there with the one loss.
Alabama gets in.
That's what I think. I think Alabama gets in.
Alabama gets in. Now, here's the thing too, is where does Notre Dame's loss come at? Because last year Notre Dame got in with a one loss,
but theirs came from the conference.
Conference championship to Clemson.
Yeah.
So if Notre Dame
that they had beat earlier in the year.
Exactly. So if Notre Dame is undefeated,
yeah,
and Alabama's sitting at one loss, A&M's in, let's say Ohio State, Oklahoma, or the other two.
Are you saying like this season?
This upcoming season. So say A&M is whatever 10-0, 12-0. I guess 12-0 because we're not gonna have the COVID year. Ohio State's undefeated. Clemson's undefeated.
Alabama loses to say Georgia in the SEC title game.
Loses to Georgia or loses to Florida in the regular season. Florida upsets them because that would put them out of the. Well, it wouldn't put them out, but
I still
it would put them out.
I still think Alabama gets in.
Over an undefeated Notre Dame?
I think they do.
I don't.
And the only reason for that is because wait, are we saying Alabama played for their conference championship game?
No, because they can't. Because if A&M is undefeated, they're in the same.
Oh, okay.
You see what I'm saying?
I was thinking we were talking like they lose to Florida or Georgia in the SEC championship.
No. Well, they couldn't because if A&M is undefeated. You see what I'm saying? If A&M is undefeated, they get in on the West.
So we're still okay.
So Alabama is a one loss with not a conference championship.
Okay, so what about this scenario? 2021, this coming season.
Right.
Let's say Notre Dame goes undefeated, runs the entire table on their schedule.
Right.
Alabama goes undefeated, and so does Georgia.
Mm-hmm.
They meet up in the SEC title game. Georgia beats Alabama. Does Notre Dame make it in over Alabama, or does Alabama make it in over Notre Dame?
Okay,
the only loss comes to Georgia in the SEC title, who is also undefeated.
Right.
Who makes it in, Notre Dame or Bama?
Is Notre Dame got one loss or is no loss?
None. They're undefeated.
Notre Dame.
See, I don't know, man. I think that
because if you're going by last year's precedent, you said A&M did not have the conference championship.
I agree. What? Wait, last year?
A&M was 9-1.
A&M, yeah.
A&M was and they didn't get in over and at the time it was undefeated but got beat in the conference championship game, but they was left out.
I wonder if the fact that Alabama made because you figure at that point up until the conference championship game,
right?
Alabama's undefeated,
right?
Georgia's undefeated, and that's hypothetically speaking,
right?
And so is Notre Dame.
Mm-hmm.
Who do they penalize? Because you're going to have to penalize somebody,
right? Do
you penalize Alabama for taking the loss in the conference championship, or do you penalize Notre Dame for not even playing in a conference championship? You see my point?
I get what you're saying because it's the same thing that Ohio State ran into. I think 2 years in a row in 16 and 17, where they got to the conference championship, won it, or maybe lost the conference championship game, and I can't remember now how that went. It seemed like maybe 1 year they didn't have a conference championship game.
I think they were
and they were on that. They didn't win their conference outright. Is what I'm saying. Yeah. And they were arguing that they had a better record, and the next year, I can't remember how that went. But anyways, it was kind of the same situation. Where 1 year they didn't, and 1 year they did, and they essentially argued both ways.
I think that's something the committee at some point that's going to happen.
Right.
The committee is going to have to address that. They're going to I think you're going to have to see an extension.
I do too.
Because either that, or you're going to have to force Notre Dame's hand and just stay in with the SEC. They're in the SEC with everything else, basketball and everything else.
Right.
I think that something's going to have to give because that scenario is going to put them in a bind.
Right. I think that you need 8 for one. You need 8.
I think so too.
And 2, I agree. You need 5, the Power 5. Everybody gets a bid, and then you have 3 at large.
Yep.
I mean, and there's always going to be somebody left out, but this way you're at least you're kind of you're going with the
NCAA
the basketball tournament.
Mm-hmm.
Every conference championship gets a bid,
and
then everything else is sorted out after that.
I do think that there is a limit, though. I think that
there is 8. A limit.
I think if you were to extend it further, I think you go no more than say 16. I think that's way big enough. And the only reason I throw out 16 is because that's what the D1 FCS.
That's exactly
D2,
where I was going to go. In
NAIA, they all do 16-team playoffs.
Exactly.
Anything further than that, though, I think is way too much.
Well, when you do.
And speaking of the tournament, did you know that the NCAA tournament started with 4 teams?
Really?
They started with a 4-team bracket and just kept expanding.
Right.
And now we're at 65 teams or something like that.
It was 68.
Crazy, because maybe 68.
Because I think it's 64. You got 64, and then you've got 2 other players.
You'll have a 2 teams that are a 14 seed that are playing for the 14 seed.
Right.
Makes no sense to me.
It doesn't make sense to me either. And I'm a basketball guy, and I don't like that part
I love
of it.
The tournament. Who doesn't love the tournament?
But whenever you talk about the playoffs, and we've kind of gone off on a tangent here, but it's okay.
Yeah, I know.
But to me, NAI, the FCS, and the division and all that, they do 16 teams. Well, and if you ever listen to the coach that was at Washington State, Texas Tech, and he's at Mississippi State now. What's his name?
Again, what'd you say?
The Mississippi State head coach.
Leach.
Mike Leach.
Yeah.
He actually was the one that said this. He goes, well, compare it to those guys. Well, jump Division I, go to the NFL. How many teams they let in their playoffs?
Yeah, I think
16.
Is it 16?
Yep. It's eight from each AFC and NFC.
Okay.
So 16 teams. So the only one that doesn't do 16 teams is Division I.
Yeah. Well, up until recently, Division I FBS was the only league of football, period, that didn't have a playoff system.
Right.
I mean, you go all the way down to Pee Wee, and they got a playoff system.
Right.
So.
Well, even high school, you put everybody into a bracket, and you say who's best.
Pee Wee, middle school, high school, everything has a playoff system.
Right.
Flag football has a playoff system.
Right.
So
I agree. It's something that needs to happen, and I think eventually it will, just out of necessity and fans wanting it.
Yeah.
Because, and we've talked about this too off air, that we're kind of sick and tired of seeing the same 3 teams.
Well, and I think that by doing 4, that's always going to happen.
Right. You're going to have the 3 main teams that's going to dominate it.
Yeah. All right. Yeah.
So, to me, it needs to be expanded to at least 8, 5 automatic, Power 5 bids, and then 3 at large. Because then you're going to might get a Coastal Carolina, or an Iowa State on the outside looking in, A&M like they were on the outside looking in last year. So, anyways, all right, last segment, and I'm so excited for this segment. When I was making my list, and like I said, my list went down pretty easy. Like I said, I looked at all the games from the last 20 years, and I just started writing down, and some of them got left off.
Yeah.
But I was like, oh, this is definitely, mine.
I'm kind of second guessing mine a little bit already, but I'm sticking with it. But
I'm sure that
hard,
we're going to.
It was hard.
I guarantee you, because I know how you think. It's a lot of the way I think. I guarantee we have 2 of the same, maybe 3.
I think there's a couple here.
I'm looking at my list, and
considering the window, you only got a 20-year window, so I think there's going to be a couple that are going to be the same.
Right. We've actually talked even
maybe
on some of our previous shows.
Yeah.
We've talked about some of these games and how much we enjoyed watching them. So I'm thinking, we're going to be pretty close.
All right, let's kick this thing off.
I'm not even going to set a timer. I'm just going to be honest with you. I'm going to watch the clock on the computer and just kind of gauge it.
I don't think this is probably going to be a 5 and 30. No, I'm kidding. No, 30. We ain't got time for that.
If you look at my notes, it says 5 and 5-ish.
5-ish. 5 and 5 plus 5 plus 5 plus 5 plus 5.
All right, so my number 5 is the 2017 Clemson, Alabama, 35-31.
That's a good one.
I really enjoyed that one. That was number 4 was the 16 game. So it was the revenge game for Clemson in the title game. So, but
that was now, and I've got that one on my list. That was the one. The 35-31 was the year. It was the 16-17 season.
Yes,
that was the one with Deshaun Watson where he threw the pass to what was that receiver?
The 15-16 was Deshaun Watson.
I thought are you sure Clemson beats Alabama 35-31 in Atlanta, or not Atlanta, but in Tampa? Is that what we're talking about?
It's 2017.
I thought that
was
the
Lawrence's freshman year. Or sophomore year. Because Lawrence beat them.
Oh, okay. I thought that was okay. Maybe I must. I
could be wrong about that, but I don't think I am.
I thought okay. I'm gonna go ahead and go with my 5 because that's my number 4. I'm gonna look that up.
Okay.
While you're doing your number 4, my number 5 was Alabama over Texas, and
is that 2012? Is that right?
No, it's 2009. The 2009 season. The game was played in January 2010. Carried over.
Right.
It was in the Rose Bowl. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, I was off my ears.
Austin, if he's watching, Austin always said he will say to his grave that game would have been totally different if Colt McCoy hadn't gone down.
Oh, I agree.
I agree to an extent. I think Alabama still wins the game, but I think it's a better game. And I think it was Marcel Darius that he had the strip sack on Colt McCoy,
right?
And then that was the play that hurt him. And I think it was before halftime. It was pretty early.
Oh, it was like maybe second drive of the game.
Was it?
It was. Okay. I think it was first quarter.
It was really early.
I think it was first quarter. I could be wrong. He went down pretty early, and they were moving the ball.
Changed the entire complexion of the game.
Absolutely.
And which just still ended up. 37-21. I know sounds like
right,
a pretty lopsided game, but it was better than the score showed, I guess.
Right.
But you could still tell Alabama was the better team.
Oh yeah, especially after Colt McCoy went out.
Yeah.
But
there's just something about the Rose Bowl has so much history behind it.
It's a beautiful setting.
Magical, yeah.
It's a beautiful setting. Yes, the parade and all that goes into it. As you're looking at this game, mine was the 16 game between Alabama and Clemson, and Alabama won 45-40. And that
was a good one.
That was a very good game. I remember watching that one. It was I don't like Alabama. Just being a Tennessee fan, I don't like them.
I think it was the first meeting, wasn't it?
That was the first time they met.
Alabama-Clemson meeting?
Right, and I think that was Deshaun Watson.
I think he was in both games. Okay, Deshaun Watson was in that game that we were talking about.
Okay.
He was the quarterback in that game.
Okay.
I think the one you're thinking of was the year that Clemson just ransacked Alabama. Like, it wasn't even a contest. Like, that was a couple years ago, wasn't it? When Trevor Lawrence won it? Because he's only won one.
Yeah, you're right.
I think.
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
But anyways, going back to the game that you were just talking about, though, the Clemson Alabama Part 1.
How many parts? 45-40.
How many parts of that game have we had? 4? 3? 4?
3, if I'm not mistaken.
That's
because the college football playoffs got started in 2014.
15. Well,
14 into 15 season.
14 season. Yeah, you're right. 14 season.
So, and I think that title game was between
Oregon, Ohio State was the very first one.
Yeah, you're right. Actually, Ohio State beat Alabama in the in the first one, and that was the game
in the college football, or it beat them in the playoff.
In the first round of the playoff,
yeah,
and that was the game where Urban Meyer is sitting in the press conference, and they came in. They say, Oregon scored, I think it was some ridiculous amount of points, 63 points in the first round of the college playoff.
It was Jameis Winston. You remember? It was they beat Jameis in the Rose Bowl,
and Oregon absolutely throttled them.
Yeah,
it was like 63-21 or something like that. And so the reporter says, did you hear the Oregon score game? And he said, no, I've not had time to stop and watch because they played the early game.
Yeah.
He said I've been in game mode. I'm not. They said, well, they scored 63 points. And he's like, they scored how many? And 63-21 was the final, and he goes, I've got to get ready. And he gets up and leaves the press conference. It was like, oh, my gosh, they scored 63 points. It was anyways, that's not even the game.
That was the game, too, though.
But yeah,
it wasn't
16, Alabama, 45, Clemson, 40.
Yeah, that was a good one. That was a back and forth. Like, there was no defense in that game. It was a back and forth the whole game. That was a crazy game. So my number 4 was going back to the one that you had.
At number 5?
Yeah, 20. It was the 2016 into 17 season.
Yeah.
And who was that receiver? Hunter Renfrow.
Hunter Renfrow.
The dude that was a walk-on. Now he's an Oakland Raider.
He's an Oakland Raider. He caught the game-winning touchdown on a rub route.
Like out route or something.
It was a rub route.
Rub route, yeah. And crazy ending, crazy finish. But yeah, it was a good game. But that was my number 4.
All right, my number 3 is the 2003 Ohio State-Miami double overtime game.
Okay, we have another one. Anyway, yeah, go ahead.
that was mine.
That was a really good game.
That was, Miami is still, I think Coker was still the coach.
He was.
And they were still, they were the U. Kind of one of the last times that they were the U.
Champion.
Yeah, they were the defending.
National championship.
They were. And Ohio State comes in with Maurice Claret, and
Yes.
I can't remember the quarterback's name, but nobody really gave him a chance. And then they ended up winning in double overtime. I think Ken Dorsey was the quarterback for Miami.
They
had.
I'm trying to get him on the show. Shout out Ken Dorsey. I don't know if he's on Twitter or not, to be honest.
And who was the running back that Miami had that got hurt?
Willis McGahee.
McGahee.
They had Willis McGahee. He's actually a what if that I almost wrote about, and I was like, I'll say for a future live show.
Right.
But yeah, Willis McGahee, man.
And he got hurt in the game too. I think he hurt his knee.
Towards ACL.
That's right.
And it was nasty. If you look at the clip, like his whole knee
it was nasty
over on the.
And that's another thing that kind of going back to what we talked about with Austin and the Texas and Colt McCoy. That game is probably different.
Yes.
Is if Willis McGahee plays, because he ended up going pro and had a successful career in the pros.
Well, and that and two, I'll take this to my grave too. Miami won the game. In the story, Ohio State did not win that game. What was Chris Gamble did not? There was not pass interference. He dropped the ball.
Right.
The ball made contact before the defender made contact, and he just dropped it. He just didn't catch the ball.
Oh, I agree.
And
I agree, 100%.
even the commentators at that time were like, "That's a bad call. That's
Right.
a bad call.
Right.
You don't make that call in that point."
And
in the game. It's a
that
bad
was,
call.
That was in 03, and that was before the coaches challenge and all that has been.
Yeah,
So, but anyhow.
So my number 4 or 3 rather, and it probably should be higher, but these other two games I don't know, to have a lot of history behind them,
Right.
I guess, from myself, childhood magic. But excuse me, number 3 was Alabama over Georgia.
That's my number 2. That's my number 2.
Atlanta, 26-23. Dude, what a game!
Okay, so we're going to get into
Go
that
ahead.
because that's my number 2 as well. I mean, it's an amazing game because they had played in the SEC the SEC championship game, just like a month earlier, and
no. This was that crazy year when Alabama got knocked out because of Auburn,
right?
And Auburn honestly should have been in the playoff. It's crazy how it unfolded because Auburn beat Alabama and Georgia in like back-to-back weeks,
right,
or just a few weeks from each other,
right.
And then goes to Atlanta, and Georgia just wakes up all of a sudden,
right,
and kept Auburn from making it because
right.
Auburn beat both teams that were in the national title game,
right,
in the regular season, and beat them handily,
right.
And then they, it unfolds the way it unfolds. Right. What was that down and distance on that last play?
It was second down in like 26 to Devontae Smith. The funny story I have from that, I was watching Tua talk about his relationship with Nick Saban. And the relationship, he said it was a very trusting relationship and all this. And he remembers when he took the sack on first down, the -16. And then, he said, Coach was mad. He was furious at me. He said, then, of course, I get the touchdown throw to Devontae. He said that they went into the locker room, and Saban comes up, everybody's celebrating, and Saban asked him, what was you thinking taking that sack on first down? And to his answer, he goes, I was happy. I was excited. So I was joking. He said, I was like, well, I just needed more room to make that throw to Devontae on second down. Saban looked at him and said, don't ever do that again, and walked away. He goes,
even in celebration
mode, he is still coaching.
Yeah.
He just won the national championship, and he's asking his quarterback why he took a sack.
If crazy as that sounds, as funny as that is, that's why he's as great as he is.
Oh, absolutely.
That is why he is who he is.
Right.
But yeah, that was a great game.
Agree.
So my number 2 was Ohio State over Miami.
Right.
In the Fiesta Bowl.
Oh, okay. So we just flip-flopped.
Yeah, we flip-flopped.
2 and 3.
And again, like I said, I'll go to my grave saying Ohio State beat Miami.
Miami beat Ohio State.
Yes, Miami beat Ohio State.
I agree.
Did beat Miami.
I agree.
No, I think Miami won that game.
And looking back,
you can't convince me that was.
At the time, I really did not like Miami just because, and it's kind of the same thing with now with Clemson and Ohio State and Alabama, where it's just they're there every year, and you just get tired of seeing them. And so I was kind of rooting at the time for Ohio State just to knock somebody off their pedestal.
Yeah.
And it happened. I was happy, but now
see at that time I think I was like 8 maybe. I don't know. I can't remember how old I was at that time. But anyways, I was playing Pee-wee.
I'm not gonna show my age.
I was playing Pee-wee ball
right.
For a local team here, and ironically enough, we were the Storm,
right.
and which is kind of goes with Hurricane a little bit. And we were orange and green, just like Miami.
Right, I can remember.
So
I
was like, oh man, this, I felt like it was kind of like, my college team. This was before I really dove into
right.
Tennessee football.
Right.
But so it was. I like Miami.
I don't. Well, now I'm indifferent to them, and I don't like Ohio State. But
now I'm just a college football fan. I have teams I don't like, but I just love college. I'm a nerd for college football.
Right.
Like it's the greatest sport. But anyways, I feel like our number one's gonna be identical now.
I guarantee it.
I guarantee.
When I made this list, I was like,
if
on
this
Jesse's
team is
list.
not your number one, if this game is not your number one, then we just can't do this show anymore.
So I am going to show my age. On this game, I was a senior in high school. Me and a bunch of my friends got together to watch it because it was just one of those games where you either really thought one team was just going to absolutely dominate, or you thought, hey, other team has a chance to upset. And it's 06, it's Texas, it's USC.
Yes. Okay.
And
we're good.
And so we got together and watched it, and it was one of those, kind of like the Patriots and the Falcons, where the fans of USC just know it's going to happen. If you give the ball to Vince Young, Vince Young is going to win the game.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it just one of those games that you just feel like there's nothing you can do. You're hopeless. Your defense cannot stop him. Haven't stopped him all game.
Yeah.
And I think Reggie Bush had a boneheaded play there.
I was going to say,
third quarter.
We were talking about what ifs. What if he doesn't try making that lateral? Because USC was rolling.
They were. They
were
Texas
rolling.
couldn't stop them.
They had nothing for what was their nickname? Thunder and Lightning.
Thunder and Lightning. Lindell White and Reggie Bush.
They had no answer for it.
Right.
And then all of a sudden he tries making that lateral, you can't dog the guy. I mean, he's a Heisman winner. He's the reason you're in the game. Like
you can dog him.
He was the offense. Like,
I agree.
Was it a smart play? No. Was the playmaker in him just a little too much? For him trying to do too much. Yes, he just had too much.
Right.
I think the competitiveness in him and just the I don't even know.
Oh, I agree.
Really,
I mean, he was trying to make a play.
Yeah.
But I mean, and you said, like you said, he tried to do too much. He was trying to, extend the play as he was getting tackled.
He tried making a great play to one of probably the most unathletic guy on the entire field.
Right.
Who had he did not expect that ball to come at him at all.
It was a lineman, wasn't it?
It was. I can't remember. I thought it was a fullback, but it may have been
tight end or something.
Some guy that does not get the ball a lot. You could tell he did not get the ball a lot because he was not expecting the ball to come his way.
Nobody in the stadium outside of Reggie Bush expected the ball to come out of his hands.
No, I mean it was. I mean, why would it?
Right. And you talk about some of the names that was in that game. You had Vince Young, you had Jamal Charles, you had Lindell White, Reggie Bush. The quarterback for USC was Matt Leinart. You had Pete Carroll. You had Mac Brown on the other side coaching. I mean, there was a lot of just epic names that was.
The Titans fan in me. I'm pretty sure Brian Arakpo was the linebacker for Texas in that game.
That sounds right.
I think
that sounds right. And it seems like they may have had was it Griffin? Michael Griffin?
Yeah,
that was a safety for Texas. Yeah, the Tennessee, the Titans drafted.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it was just a lot of talent on that field, and I mean, and whether you're a fan of USC, Texas, or just college football at the time, it was what everybody all season wanted. They wanted to see Texas.
Yeah.
They wanted to see USC, and they got it. And I think one of the commentators, after the game said, if you play this game 10 times, USC wins 9.
Yeah.
And I agree.
But
it was just that one,
And see, that's the thing I think that makes college football so great.
Right.
Is anybody can be beat on any given day.
Right.
And, and I'm kind of getting off the rails a little bit, I guess, but you saw the quote from Kendrick Perkins on First Take, a few weeks ago, where he said that it's easier to win a championship, and this is talking about the NFL, but it's easier to win a championship in the NFL than it is in the NBA. That's stupid. That's stupid. And the reason
there's a lot of reasons for that.
And and I think college basketball is kind of the same thing. It doesn't compare to college football in the fact that like college basketball, and I'm actually taking this from Josh Pate from
Right.
His podcast Late Kick, but he talked about if you have a matchup with North Carolina, Kentucky in the regular season, early on in the year,
Right.
it doesn't matter who wins that game.
It doesn't,
because when you get to the end of the year, they can play again, or they could not even meet and still run through the NCAA tournament,
right,
and be on opposite sides of the tournament. That game, the Texas USC game, was so big because it's a game that like you said, everybody wanted to see happen,
right,
and nobody had a do-over. You don't have more times to play that game. It's the game.
It's the one chance you have.
And that game, anytime it's on ESPN Classic or whatever, I will always stop and watch that game. Like that's one of my favorite, obviously my favorite national championship.
It is my favorite championship game.
And my favorite moment from that game is who is it's gonna kill me that I can't think of his name. Is it the commentator for that game? Was it Brent Musburger? Was that who it was, or was it somebody else? It was him.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
It was him and another
My
iconic.
favorite line is when Vince Young's rolling out and you hear he's going to the corner and he scores.
Right.
And like that, man, like chills, literal chills from that game.
And I think that Westberger also had the quote in the game while it was going. You don't want to give the ball back to Vince Young.
Yeah.
You don't want that was something
you don't
want to give the ball back to him, and it was for obvious reasons. He had just shredded that defense.
And again, Titans fan in me, I'm thinking now we ended up with Vince Young, Brian Arakpo, and Michael Griffin.
And Lindell White.
And Lindell White. Wow, that's pretty crazy. We ended up with all four of those guys on the same I forgot about Lindell White.
Right.
That's kind of funny that, if we had four guys coming out of that game,
right,
the Titans squad, and Vince Young was good for a little while there. He was it.
Oh yeah, he won I think Offensive Rookie of the Year, and I think
he took us to a playoff.
He did
appearance.
He did.
Took us to a 13-3 season the year after.
Did you all have Chris Johnson at that point too?
We did.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that was a fun team to watch with Chris Johnson and Vince Young.
Yeah.
And it seems like they had a really good receiver. I can't remember his name right now, but it was a fun team to watch.
Yeah.
So,
but that was a great game. We got off the rails. That was a great game.
Oh yeah, I think we went like 20 minutes on it. Yeah. Looking at my time. Anyhow, guys, appreciate it. Make sure if you're listening to us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, guys, drop us a like, drop us a comment. It really helps the show. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure you subscribe. Hit that notification bell because we go live every Thursday. Trying to go a little bit later at 7. Can't promise we're going to be right at 7 every time. I think that was 7:30.
Yeah,
but we're going to be here every 7-ish. But we're also going to be dropping a lot of our interviews. We dropped one with Jamie Chadwell this past Monday. We've got one with Sparky Woods, who is the head advisor to Mac Brown at UNC. And actually tomorrow we're going to be recording, I think, at least 2, maybe 3.
We got 2 as of now, 3 potentially. We've got CFB campus tour.
Oh, I'm really excited to listen to this guy's conversations.
I can't wait to hear this guy. This guy it's a bucket list type of thing.
Right.
He is on his way to visiting every FBS stadium for a game and every FCS stadium for a game. That one I think is the second one of the day. The first one of the day is Chris Oliver, the head coach at Lindsey Wilson.
Oh yeah,
national champion.
Right.
We talked excited about that one too.
I am too.
And then potentially I'm not going to mention the surprise that we might end up getting because it's pretty cool too.
Oh, which we are going to at some point land this other guest.
Yeah.
And then Coach Kelly at some point as well.
Yeah. I can't wait for that one either.
Don't know when that's going to be scheduled.
Yeah,
but
we just got to get our schedules to line up right.
Right.
He's been super helpful though, super gracious and patient with us.
Right. So and those will be dropping on Mondays at noon. So we're going to try and get as much content out to you as we can. We're trying to get a lot done. So, but yeah, make sure that you guys hit that notification bell. Leave us a comment on YouTube. Like I said, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get it from. If you guys want to have a comment or anything, guys, shoot us a message on Twitter. We're both on Twitter. Real Rocky Top Red, Tennessee Keith, Facebook. If you leave us a comment there, go through the Anchor app. Any of that, guys, we'd really appreciate it. You good?
I'm good, man.
Thanks, guys.